Hey everybody, welcome back to When the Lights Go Out podcast. My name is Eli, and today we're doing part 2 of a 4-part miniseries where we kind of go over a historical event, and we see how sports has interacted with that and how kind of interwoven they are. We're back with Moof. Say hi, Moof.
I'm Moof.
James.
What's up, guys?
And Sean.
Oh man, Twitter need no applause.
Dude, ABP, always be plugging.
Always be plugging. Every facet of your life. All right, so I think, Moof, you're just going to get into it. Tell us what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a condensed history of the cricket rivalry between India and Pakistan. So, this is one of the most intense rivalries in all of sport all over the world. As most sports are, there's the sports is kind of in front of a kind of political background, if that makes sense.
Off the field.
Yeah, exactly. So because of the tense relationship between the two countries since the UK Britain kind of left them to do their thing.
Drew a line.
That's one way to put it.
They've had like a really bitter diplomatic relationship. They've been into Pakistani wars, the Kashmir conflict. Cricket matches have morphed into not just another game, but like a non-violent surrogate for the more violent off-the-field conflicts. So the first of these cricket matches was played in 1952, and there have been games almost every year, at least once a year since then. There have been some instances where play has been either canceled or suspended due to other conflicts that have happened between India and Pakistan. One example is the 1999 Kargil War, or the 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks that occurred. Due to ongoing tension and large Pakistani and Indian populations in other countries, such as Canada or the United Arab Emirates, those countries have been used as like neutral venues for games. But the biggest thing that I took away from doing this research is the heat that players from both teams face to win. Like, I'm a fantasy football player, and I'll get pissed at players if they don't perform, and I'll be like, oh, I hope that player like bad words,
caught a touchdown. I see what
you know
saying.
what I mean? But these players like legit get their lives threatened, like credible threats. So there have been 199 matches played throughout the series. That's combining all the formats of cricket. India has won 70 matches. Pakistan has won 86, and there have been 43 ties. So that's a little bit condensed history.
I'm a little bit of a cricket noob. You said like all combined forms. Are there more than one forms?
So there's a couple different formats, and I'm gonna put it a way that I understand it because I'm also like still learning about cricket. So there's the original form of cricket, which the game literally can last multiple days. Like, it can go on that long. And then they created a shorter form of cricket, I believe called Test cricket, and that has like a day limit. Yeah.
Wow.
And I know, a day.
Just a day?
Just
for
a
a whole cricket game?
And then most recently, I think around 2010-ish, a new form of cricket was created to make the sport more dynamic and more exciting, called 2020 cricket, and that those matches usually last 3 hours, so like a football match.
Yeah, and as we know, everything with 2020 in it is more interesting.
It is
absolutely
more fun, more intense.
Also, I want to like, this isn't important to anybody else, but I want to make this distinction for me. cricket is not like baseball. Baseball is like cricket. Cricket came
Hell yeah.
first.
Cricket-
That is
cricket's
very
pretty old.
important to me. To
Cricket
point
came-
out.
Watch Lagan. Great
Lagan,
movie.
of course.
Look,
Well, the like, did baseball originate in Great Britain? Like, was it brought back?
I'm pretty sure baseball originated in the U.S. and it was just like, hey, UK, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar to how football kind of evolved from rugby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Although football was also created in. No, okay, we're gonna move on.
I don't know.
Since I don't know,
In
I'm
a
not gonna
lab?
say it. But I also want to make a little fun fact about Test cricket is that it's called Test because it's so physically and mentally demanding. It's like a test of strength. That's why games like can last up to 5 days and like shit can like go on. Like it's
Wow.
really intense. And that's like one of the first matches that Pakistan and India post partition played against each other in like 57 or whatever was like a
Yeah.
test. And they played like 3 of them and like the third one just like they just ended in a draw because like they just like couldn't go any longer. They were just like, yeah, we're done with this. This is gone too long. And go ahead.
Yeah, really quick, I just wanted to backtrack and just so people know kind of what the history specifically of partition and just kind of like how Britain. I mean, I'm literally physically drawing a line with my finger because that's kind of just what happened. How
A little more complicated than a line. Yeah.
Yeah.
James got this one.
It's actually it's a vertical line.
it's
I'm pretty
a
sure.
Yeah.
vertical line.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Well, I
a-
mean, it's
not
it
only
goes
is it
from-
a vertical line, it's a vertical line, and then it's a little hop on the right.
It's a little it's a little
and then
hump.
above the vertical line is the fuzzy horizontal lines with disputed like
Yeah.
where Kashmir
Yeah.
is.
So
Yeah, it's-
dumb.
Kashmir. Yeah.
No disputed. I think the like, depending on which like Google Maps you're on, like if you're in like .in, it'll show you a different map.
Yeah.
In the
Oh
was
my
it
God.
the Jammu and Kashmir provinces? It's also like really mountainy, so like I don't even know if they know.
Yeah. The partition is another consequence of global imperialism, right?
Yeah.
And like I think they estimate like around like 1 to 2 million people died pre and post partition, like of because of the partition.
Right.
People like I think millions more were displaced. Like personally, my grandparents left Pakistan and like had to leave all their stuff,
Oh,
and they
That
just
sucks.
took their clothes in their back to go to India because they were Hindu.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's like one of the ways I remember a metaphor I described it to James was it's like the movie Miracle on Ice, but like way more intense, back to like thousands and thousands of like deaths and displacements and suffering. And it's like the US Soviet like
Yeah.
I think it's the
Well-
closest that like the US people can
Yeah.
like relate to it.
For sure.
Yeah, and
Right.
you touched on this, but I think we should like part of the reason it's so heated and having to do with partition is Great Britain was like they just drew a line and said everyone that is Muslim has to go to
Yeah.
Pakistan, everyone that's Hindu has to go to India, and like these are like ancient world religions that have already been like mixing and conflicting, and
Yeah.
like they just said like, all right, pick a side, but like they picked the sides and told people to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And India's not a small country, so like
Yeah.
if you were
No.
like a Muslim in Western India, you got a ways to go.
It's a very similar thing that they've basically done to the Middle East and to Africa, which are both very large areas. Africa's gigantic, where it's just like there are so many different cultures and subcultures in like square areas, and they say everyone in this box from
It's
a
like-
satellite, from a bird's eye view, is going to be this one thing, even though that's not how people existed until like the past 60 years.
They drew many borders in Africa with a pencil and a map.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would try to solve like more partition issues by designating a place called East Pakistan. We're like, oh, like if you're really, really east, you can go here. And that ended up going terribly. There was a large liberation movement, and then that East Pakistan area is now the modern day Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think
Yeah.
what Sean said was really. I was actually going to mention the Miracle on Ice too.
Yeah.
But like
Too
what I was
late.
going to say is the India-Pakistan cricket rivalry is Miracle on Ice combined with the Hatfields and McCoys. Like everybody's killing each other.
And like also the
outside of it.
Crusades a little bit mixed
Yeah.
in
A
there.
little,
Yeah, it's,
yeah, just throw it a little in there.
Maybe some Saving Private Ryan, just kind of for spice.
Yeah, but like, it's very intense because of the violent conflicts between the two countries, and because of that, like I said, it just enhances the rivalry.
Yeah. So I guess this is just me again, not knowing that much about it. Maybe you guys can tell me, when they do play, is it like a moment of unity where they're like, let's just sit down, like have a few, if they drink beers, and then like watch this game? Or is it like
so
not?
I'm glad you
Depends on
asked.
what point in time, I think.
There is a Times of India article in 2015 titled "Cricket Fans Reveal Their Ugly Side."
That tells you what you need to
We're
know.
talking like
So
Eagles ugly, or like how ugly?
I take offense to that.
We're talking about so I'll just read off right here. So in 2015, there was the one day international with the ODI, which is like a match that's played, or tournament basically that's played all the time, and it's between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. And there was a huge fight that broke out in the stands, and the Pakistani players sat on the ground waiting for it to end. And the crowd, which refused to stop fighting, like kept on going. So then they forced the cricketers to go back to like their like locker rooms or whatever, and they had to like deploy like anti-riot squads, and it was like a full like day and night of just like fighting. And it was
Oh my
like,
gosh.
and this is one paragraph out of the multiple entries on this article. In 2008, there was a bunch of fans who threw bottles and garbage onto the field. There
That's
were
some
like,
Eagle shit.
they're protesting stuff. Yeah, that is some shit. Fuck the Eagles.
Wow, okay, I take a lot of
Sorry, I'm a Patriots fan. It's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, I don't even have to say anything now.
yeah. No, it's okay. You don't. What am I supposed to do during the off season? I don't know. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, join the club.
And like it just like there's just so many incidents. Like I know one of them like was in 2009. Let me check my notes so I don't get that wrong and roasted. 2009. Okay. The Sri Lankan national cricket team was like fired upon while they were in a bus going to a match in Pakistan, and there was like 2 civilians killed, and like six none of the cricketers died, but like a lot of policemen and the cricketers got shot. And it was like there's been like, I know Moof mentioned that earlier, like how a lot of conflicts have like stopped them from playing. Like I think they stopped playing in 2015, and I think 2019 was when they last played. There's just been a lot of stuff that has like disrupted play and disrupted matches as like conflicts break out on like a political stage or a wider stage. But then it's also weird because like the next year they'll come back, and like the Pakistani like prime minister will get invited to come to the match, and like I think like one of them, it was in the 70s. Like there was a conflict. They stopped playing for a couple of years, and then like the Pakistani prime minister comes to India. He actually goes to the city where my grandmother was at. It's called Jaipur, India, and like that's where the match was held. And they're just having a match, and it's like it's so weird because you would think like there would be so much like I don't know, like how would you're at a war with a country, and now like you have like a match next year, and it's literally like if we like broke out in war with like, I don't know, Mexico or the UK, and then we sent like the Jags and the Panthers to go, I don't know, like go play over there. And it's like, what? Like, I don't know like how they're like, there was already
we would send the Jags there, but
It's
actually always the Jags. It's actually always the
Is it
Jags.
really?
The Jags have gone to the most international games.
Oh, well,
I don't
yeah,
That's
know.
they go
because
to London.
the Jags volunteer to go to London.
Yeah,
Because they need some fans somewhere.
I can. Yeah, we could,
Yeah.
that's another episode. I live in
But yeah, it's like-
Jacksonville now. I'll talk.
I'm just like it's like the purge, but like for the stupidest reason. You know? Like
Yeah, and it's so crazy how like something so long ago has like still such large effects to this day. Like that's like the thing that blows me the most about this. There is a whole like wiki page on the India-Pakistan cricket rivalry. That's a subsection of the India-Pakistan rivalry, and
yeah.
it's something that's been so ongoing. And you think about like the people alive right now who like are probably like so detached from like the material consequences of the partition and stuff. Like things are getting better, like as like the younger generation grows up, as like the countries trade with each other more, as like the open markets and stuff. Like people like, because I have cousins there, and they like their sentiment is not as distrustful of the other side as like our grandparents are, or our stuff. So, but like these effects are still there. Like they're still not really playing. There's still like violence that can break out, and it's like these people like at this they're fighting for like this energy that's like still persistent, while like the material underlyings are like not as prominent.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It reminds me. I mean, I hate to bring it, take kind of out of the sports context and bring it just into like a geopolitics context,
Right.
but it's literally the most analogous thing you can get to the Israeli-Palestinian kind of
100%.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
it's
and
so close.
The religious
the common
state.
thread is none other than Great Britain. So
Drawing a line.
Yeah.
Actually, they draw 4 lines. I took a class thinking I was like, I'm Jewish. Like this will be like a gen ed for me. It was I learned more information than I thought I could about a conflict.
Those are the best classes when you learn more than you thought. You're like, oh, I did learn.
Yeah. But the thing I learned the most is that it's like what are you gonna do? It's such a ridiculously deep conflict that like you can't like not everyone can win, and it's none of the people involved's like personal fault that they are mad at the other side.
Yes,
But
exactly.
It's hilarious to me that you bring up. I mean, it's pretty obvious to bring up Britain, you know, but it's hilarious in the fact that most countries so when Britain colonized the country, what they would do is they would bring a sport like in India and Pakistan's case, cricket, and then with Australia and New Zealand, they would bring rugby. And the idea behind it was, we're gonna give you something fun to do so you unite as a country, and that would help us control you. And then
bring about nationalism.
It's hilarious to me because after these countries, the US, India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, gained their freedom, they turned around and said, hey, fuck you, Britain, we're going to become better at the sport than you. And in America's case, they made a different sport. Like literally.
Oh, yes.
So.
New sport.
Yeah, and we were talking about like how there's just no solution. It does, like there is a people who live on the borders of these countries who are essentially the same as the people on the other side of the border. Like they have their homes set up, they have their markets, their friends, their family, their communities. But these these larger scale conflicts that have drawn these borders that on the ground mean absolutely nothing.
Right. It's almost a gradient that changes every like 5 miles, 10 miles, every town.
And it's like they split these countries, and now people have like tried to rebuild generational wealth. So they've like set up, and now it's like, do you want people to move back? Do you want to move people out? Like you can't, you've already like the damage has been done. And at this point, time is like the only thing that's going to like fix it. And while people will still have to suffer until we get to a point.
Yeah.
It has like lasting effects. Like there was just news stories recently that like the Israeli government isn't going to give COVID vaccines to like Palestinian citizens.
Yeah.
So like that's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Um,
the Israeli government is the whole thing.
yeah, that's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
But one thing I was trying to look up was like I would like how like these state borders are a little meaningless to the people on the ground. It has like this huge rivalry like influenced like opposition or nationalism for India and Pakistan. Like do these sports games every year make people more, you know, that meme of like where the guy picks up a red flag and another guy picks up a blue flag and it's like, hey, I hate you, and you know, like has it like that fueled like that animosity of like this rivalry? I mean, it was tough. It's a very, very nuanced. Maybe there's a research paper. I'm not going to read a research paper, obviously, but I was just like wondering like how does this affect like the sentiment? Like how do people feel after these games? Like when your country loses, like you probably like you're like, oh fuck, you know, like
I mean,
like the Patriots lost to the Eagles, and I now hate the whole city of Philadelphia.
I can answer that a little bit because like one of my classes looked at this a little bit because you think about when, for example, if the U.S. men's soccer team ever makes it to the World Cup, like in previous years that we have, that kind of unites the country in a way, you know what I mean? Like no matter what every single World Cup, my dad knows nothing about soccer, but when the World Cup comes around, he knows everything about soccer. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a way to unite the country in a way. And that can work both ways, where it's great nationalism, but then it becomes a us versus them phenomenon against other countries.
This would be a great segue into the third topic, influence of the Olympics and presidential elections.
We're saving that for later.
Oh, by the way, we can cut this out. Beal has 57 points after 3.
I told 60, baby. How bad are we losing?
57.
Are they winning?
It's 117, 115. Phillies up.
Oh,
what?
Yeah.
Yo, this man's playing his heart out to beat. Honestly, the Phillies might win the division at this point, so this would be a great game for them to win.
10 minutes left. So.
That's insane.
That's high scoring. Jeez.
Yeah, if he could get 70.
He could easily get 70.
He could get a 70.
He could get 80.
No,
I don't think he could get 80. I mean, if he has like a really good, if
he's
it goes overtime,
I think he's gonna break Kobe's record.
I don't think anyone wants to break Kobe's record.
No, isn't it Kareem? Doesn't Kareem have the original record? I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, he has like 100.
Chamberlain has.
Yeah, he has
Well,
100. Somebody has 100.
It's always Chamberlain.
Yeah.
That was like before the 3-point line.
It was
This man was just throwing up
like in the
twos.
50s.
That was when you just kind of just toss it around and somehow like people would just score mad points and
yeah. That's when defense was not a thing.
Yeah,
For this Wizards team, defense also isn't a thing. So
touche.
For a lot of teams.
But anyways, I want to bring it back.
Sorry.
Come back.
Yeah.
Go, James.
Yeah, I have one more thing to sort of add. Like I was going to mention there's this like famous story. I've always wondered if it's like anecdotal or not. I think it's about Christmas Day in World War I. Like these dudes were like fighting, and then it became Christmas, and they were like, "Hey, let's play soccer." And they just like stopped killing each other, and they played soccer famously for one day, and then on the next day they went back to killing each other. And so like sometimes sports can be like let's put down our side of differences, like let's unite in what we love kind of thing. But other times it can be like just exacerbating to the already like forces that are at work in these two countries.
Absolutely. And I think something that kind of we were talking about with the nationalism, and also with that kind of the way these actual countries was just a gradient of smaller cultures kind of intertwined in certain ways. It's that thing where it's like the sports thing works very well with what the European kind of idea of everything was, which was one state, a hard border, and another state. And that's not what the rest of the world does. So there's almost like a conflict with the fact that these people probably love their neighbors and the people around them, but they also have a different mindset when it comes to sports. And it changes the like the fact that they're playing these sports on such a high level, a political level, you know, a country to country level, inter-country level, means that there's kind of exactly. There's kind of a conflict within their own minds about how the actual conflict and the sports game are kind of played, and how they view it.
Yeah.
I in my notes I found a wiki article I found earlier titled "Cricket Diplomacy." So basically, the article, or the wiki article, was talking about how sometimes cricket is used as a political tool to bridge the gap in the term diplomatic vacuums. After large scale conflicts kind of ruin relations. And the one entry on the Indo-Pakistani rival was after like the 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks, which was a series of bombings in Mumbai for like 4 days, killing a lot of people with like hostages and stuff, like really awful. It was 2011 probably. I didn't write that down, but people like believe like there was the Cricket World Cup, and India and Pakistan were playing the semifinal, and the India Prime Minister Manmohan Singh invited the Pakistani counterpart to like watch the game with him, and it was like this like big deal because he like accepted the offer, and like they sat down and watched the game together. And a lot, like the article was talking about how like a lot of people think that actually eased a lot of relations, because it was seen as like after like 3 years after this terrible attack, like these two countries kind of coming together. So it was like a really nice story where like, although like the rivalry is really bitter and long-standing, like there are these moments that can kind of come through and kind of show that like everyone really does just want what is best for everyone. Like no one wants this like conflict. No one wants like disputed lands and suffering. Like it's so deep rooted and so large scale that involves like millions of people that it's not something that you can kind of just like wave your hand, and it does take a lot of time and healing.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to stop, actually. I really like this discussion. I mean, it was something that I wasn't personally super knowledgeable about, and it's just like throughout the conversation we kind of talked about some really interesting things that I feel like a lot of people don't think about when they think about cricket, or when they think about the India-Pakistani relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the combination of both of them is in this case, it's very unique, I think, in the world stage, with the you know, the kind of ramifications that the game has on the relationship, and the relationship it has on the game. So thanks, you guys, for talking about this. It was super interesting. Thank you guys for listening. Remember, this is part 2. Am I correct? Part 2.
Yes.
Of a 4-part mini-series we're doing, where we talk about historical events and you know, sports events and how they kind of interact. So I'm Eli.
I'm Moof.
I'm Sean.
And I'm James.
And this is When the Lights Go Out. We'll see you guys later.
Woo!